You're watching 13 on your side.
I'm Stephen Bonner. I'm with 13 on your side. I'm talking to Steph Castelein of the Mackinac Island Visitors Bureau, and we're going to talk a little bit about today about what makes Mackinac Island a fantastic vacation destination. So, first off, welcome and thank you for taking your time out of your day to speak with me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So, Mackinac Island is an iconic vacation destination for Michiganders as well as for people all over the world, really. So, let's start out by talking about some of the things to see and do on the island that make it such a desirable place to visit. Can you talk a little bit about what makes the island so iconic?
Wow, how much time do you have? Yeah, I think it's just one of those places that is truly magical. So a lot of people hear about Mackinac Island and they want to see it for themselves. You know, the no vehicle thing and horses and biking is obviously intriguing for people. Being an island in Michigan is intriguing, but I think what's really neat is just the feeling that you get when you arrive on the island. It's a slower pace of life, even though if you look out the window, it's very busy right now. The best thing to do is spend the night and just take your time relaxing and exploring. And the island has so much history, which is something that I'm a big fan of and I've learned a lot about. And so to know that it's been this way for thousands of years until where we are today, it's just pretty cool when you put it all together to experience all of that.
Awesome. All right. You mentioned the fact that there's no cars. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, when did that start? How long has that been a tradition there? Are there any cars at all on the island? Just kind of talk about that, please.
Sure, I'd love to. So they were first banned in 1898. So a group of carriagemen got together and said, hey, these horseless carriages, which is a vehicle, right? They were scaring the horses. And that was part of the industry here, taking people kind of as a taxi back and forth. People had personal carriages, but then also touring carriages. So it was bad for business. And they put a band together with the city and they were able to get vehicles banned from the island. So if you come to the island now, you probably and hopefully won't see a vehicle. There are vehicles on the island. They're emergency vehicles. So we have an ambulance, we have multiple fire trucks, and the police department does have emergency police trucks as well. But like I said, hopefully you won't see those as they're more used in cases of emergency.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the island's downtown. It's the hub of the island. It has a lot to offer. What are some things that people can do there when they first get off the boat?
Yeah, when you first get off the boat, can be a little chaotic unless you're coming in the morning or leaving late. But downtown is awesome. It's vibrant. We have a lot of different shops and art galleries and local goods here on from the island as well and from Michigan. One thing you'll notice is definitely the number of fudge shops. It seems like every time you get to like every third store or so is a fudge shop, and that's actually kind of true. There's 13 shops on the island and 7 different fudge businesses. It's a big part of the island though, and so it's super fun to see the fudge makers flipping fudge through the windows, and then a lot of the businesses actually blow it out onto the sidewalk. So as you're going by, you can like smell the fudge being made, and it's hard to resist not going in there and trying it for yourself. So yeah, downtown is really cool. It's only about 3.5 blocks long, which I think surprises a lot of people. So there's a lot packed into a little space. And then anytime you leave the downtown area just a little bit, it really thins out. And like I said, I really like to go exploring, especially during the day, and then come back kind of at night. What's nice about the businesses on the island is they really stay open through that until that last ferry. So until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So if you go exploring during the day, you can swing around back downtown and hit all the downtown shopping later in the evening.
Awesome. I do remember as a kid visiting, the first thing I smelled when I got off the island was fudge. And I always made sure to have my parents take me there right away. And then I also got another hunk of fudge on my way out back to take the ferry back over to Mackinac City. So
yeah, there's strategy to it, of course. You gotta, and whenever people ask like what my favorite fudge is or where they should go, I say go try it for yourself. You can try them all, do a little fudge crawl, get the samples, and then swing back to the one that you enjoyed the most. So yeah.
Yeah, and then mentioning that too, there are like a massive variety of the fudges too. Like I always like the ones with marshmallows mixed in with it, or peanut butter, like Michigan cherries and stuff like that. So
yeah,
a fun thing to check out. Earlier in the interview, you mentioned Mackinac Island as very rich in history. I actually did like a pretty big expose on Madeleine Frambois or La Frambois from the island. earlier this year and found that to be very interesting. I know there's a lot of things involved with her. There's a church, a house, and then there's also the fort on the island. Can you talk a little bit about some of the cool historic things that people can see, including those?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mackinac, I mean, if you go back to the Native American peoples that were in northern Michigan, this is their Mecca. This is like where everything started for them. So to understand that history is pretty cool. And then when the Europeans came, and this was such an important place for the war, and who kind of controlled the land up here, controlled the Midwest back in like the 1700s. It's really interesting and to see how important the island has been throughout history for so many different peoples. But like you said, we do still tell those stories here on the island, and the state park, Mackinac Historic State Parks, they do a great job of displaying those facts and just the information and everything that they have to see. So one of the main features is Fort Mackinac. It's a big Revolutionary era fort that sits on top of the bluff overlooking the Straits of Mackinac. 14 original buildings. They still have historic interpreters up there, firing cannons, shooting rifle demonstrations. They do walking tours. And the fort is a big draw and definitely a must see. But also the historic state parks, they have other buildings as well. Those are downtown buildings. So they have the Biddle House, a Native American museum that was newly redone, opened last year, and is amazing to walk through that. They have the art museum, they have the McGulpin House. There's just so many different things to see. And then this year they're celebrating the 200th anniversary of the incident with Dr. Beaumont. So when the guy got actually shot, and Dr. Beaumont, who was stationed at the fort, he was here, was able to save him, but used that wound as kind of a study experiment, which is really just fascinating now that we can look back on it. But that is the 200th year celebration of that. So many different things happening, and it's pretty fascinating to see how those same buildings are still here. We get to go by them on tours now, but that's where those events took place.
And then another very historic building on the island is the Grand Hotel. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, Grand Hotel. I mean, definitely a must see. It's beautiful, world's longest porch. And I always recommend going up to the fourth floor, the cupola bar up on top. But, you know, it's really just a beautiful testament to building and what can be done. I mean, thinking of bringing all those materials over to an island and building here without, you know, being on the mainland, you think of all that goes into building a building today. So doing it back then on an island, it's pretty impressive. And the Grand Hotel is a great place to stay. A lot of people will make that kind of their destination and part of their trip to Mackinac, but you can also see Grand Hotel and experience it if you're not staying there. So if you stay, we actually have 39 different properties on the island, all the way from bed and breakfast, boutique hotels, inns, and then your resort, your two resorts, one of them being Grand Hotel. If you're not staying there, you can tour Grand Hotel for $10, and it's definitely worth it to see all their grounds and their hallways and the different rooms. It's pretty cool.
All right, Mackinac Island was named the best island in the continental U.S. in 2022 by the Travel and Leisure. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that means for the island, and if you've seen increased tourism this year?
Yeah, you know, I think it means a lot to the island. It means a lot to the people who come to the island and love it so much. So it's really a celebration for everyone. And that was a big thing for our businesses to feel like, you know, they like won this award. You know, they're the ones who service the people and bring everyone back and treat them well, and are like, hey, this is a destination and a place for everyone. You know, this year has been a little slower than the past 2 years. I think people were really excited to travel the past 2 years, and we were a drivable distance for a lot of folks. So rooms, filling up rooms is actually doing really well, but day traffic's down a little bit. And I think that it also has to do with the weather. Now, that we're not nervous or trending in the wrong direction by any means. What it actually means is that you're able to get through downtown a little easier. You know, where last year maybe the bikes were sold out, this year they're not sold out as much. And, you know, it's a little bit easier pace with all of this. So we are excited about the award just in general, but also looking forward to next year. Know that it will help us out to kind of promote the island and, hey, come to the #1 island in the continental US, both to people from the US and from overseas.
Awesome. And then let's talk a little bit. We've hit on a lot of the major points of the island, the touristy stuff. What are some of the little hidden gems on the island that visitors should try to seek out when they visit?
Yeah, I always recommend, if you can, taking your bikes, or if you're not riding a bike, just walking and going and exploring the trails. There are over 70 miles of trails on the island, and I like to go. A lot of people will bike the 8.2 around. But if you go to British Landing and go into the interior, you do have to climb a hill. But once you're up, it's worth it. There's so much to see in the interior that a lot of people miss out on. There's Fort Holmes, there's the historic cemeteries. The Post Cemetery is one of only 4 places that can fly the US flag half staff year round. I mean, that's on Mackinac Island. That's incredible. Then there is like Leslie Avenue, some of the trails winding through right along the bluff with overlooks, these beautiful overlooks. And so I think just like exploring the interior, I know that is kind of like a really, there's a lot that could mean, but it's whatever you want it to be. If you have a whole day, you could zigzag your way across and discover. I mean, go to Wawashkimo Golf Course. It's kind of the local golf course, and it's also the site of the 1814 battlefield. I mean, to have like the hole #1 has a cannon on it, right? So not a lot of people make their way over to the golf course unless they're golfing, but you can actually go in there, tour the 100-plus-year-old clubhouse, and it's just really fascinating how all of that history is still alive today.
Well, you mentioned the golf course. What are some other I guess sporty activities that people can do on the island other than like golfing and biking?
Something that I think is overlooked on the island is the water activity. So there's kayaking, there's stand-up paddleboarding, you can do snorkeling, there's also parasailing, and there's like a sip and sail cruise in the evening. But there's just like the water sports, you can do a charter fishing boat, you can do a small charter boat. So there's lots of different options. And I think people, really think of the hiking, the biking, and the golfing, which are very popular. But the water sports is kind of one that I would definitely share with people and encourage them to check out.
Okay. Are there any special events that are coming up between like now and the end of summer on the island that people should put on their calendar to check out?
Yeah, we have our big Fudge Festival. So celebrating all things fudge coming up at the end of August. That's the August 26th through the 28th. And then our next big event is Halloween weekend. That's kind of the last weekend that the island is open, I would say, and that's actually the 3rd weekend in October. So it's not actual Halloween weekend. A little bit different than what it is on the mainland and everywhere else, I guess. But there are foot races, 2 foot races taking place in between then. There is Shakespeare in the park throughout the next 2 months. So there's a lot of different activities, but I would say Fudge Festival and Halloween weekend are the 2 big ones coming up.
For Halloween weekend, what are some of the things that happen during that weekend? Are there like haunted houses, or are there like trick-or-treating for kids or things like that?
Yeah, mostly trick-or-treating for kids. So downtown, it's awesome. Everyone gets involved. Everyone dresses up, and the whole downtown is just like a game for it. So it's super cool. Starting about 2 or 3 o'clock, depends on the year. They'll go out and kids can trick-or-treat all up and down downtown. It's pretty cool and fun. And then in the evenings, it's actually these big costume parties at there's 3 different places that have like music, and it's basically just a big party. It's so much fun. It's really cool to see too, like just to be standing out at dark, looking up at the stars, and you can just hear the music, hear the people, and it's just it's a lot of fun. But it's definitely a fun weekend, and one of the foot races is that weekend as well. So there's different events throughout the days, but those are the trick-or-treating and the evening costume parties are the 2 big ones.
Awesome. It feels like too for Halloween that since it has that kind of old-timey feel to it, the island in general, that it's almost like something out of like a Sleepy Hollows kind of thing with the older buildings, to where it fit perfectly with the motif of Halloween. That's very
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah. And you know, what's cool too is those events are super fun. But the best part, my favorite part of the island is doing nothing, taking a break, sitting down in the park, people watching, listening to the horses. And in October, you really get to do that. It slows down. So not only can you look forward to those two things, right? And the Sleepy Hollow sort of thing, but it's like you can it's a beautiful time to take a carriage ride because the leaves are starting to change. It's a beautiful time to go to British Landing where there's Cannonball Oasis and get apple cider and donuts. You know, it's a great time to grab some hot chocolate because it's changing this into that season from the local fudge shop that also sells hot chocolate. So, and just like walk around. So there's a lot of different options, and it's not always the big events that really shine. Those are a big draw for people, but it's the moments in between that I think makes Mackinac so special.
Talking a little bit more about seasons outside of like spring and summer. So you said the island like closes in October, but it doesn't actually like fully close. You can still visit the island in later fall and over the winter. There's just not as much going on. That's correct.
Yeah, you know, the community isn't set up for full-on tourism in the winter. The island stays open because there's a real community that lives here, about 500 people. There's a K through 12 public school. You know, there's sports activities and community activities going on. But if visitors or tourists come over, they're going to find a totally different island than what you see in the summertime. So we don't ever discourage people from coming over. We just want them to know what they're getting into. It's a lot of walking on the trails, maybe reading a good book and visiting the one restaurant that's open, you know, for maybe some food and drink. So it's pretty darn quiet, but yeah, you can definitely get here, and it is an experience. It is really cool to see. But if someone comes wanting like some, you know, people to be downtown, it's pretty darn deserted.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to highlight on the island before I let you go?
Sure. Yeah, I would just say, I think, you know, like I said, I've kind of said it throughout the interview, but people are always, you know, they come to the window that we have in our downtown booth. I encourage people to visit us and grab a map, and we can kind of help plan anything that they need help with. But they're always asking what to do. And I think that's great. We all are naturally inclined to find events and find, you know, where the energy is, but the energy is just right out there. And I love watching the people in the park just hanging out. So I guess I would encourage people, if they want to get away, if they want to escape the hustle and bustle and not do much while still being totally entertained, Mackinac is a great place. And they can find all the information on our website, mackinacisland.org.
Well, thank you very much, Steph. I appreciate it. Steph from the Mackinac Island Visitors Bureau talking with me today. I hope to see you soon on the island myself.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, come and visit anytime, and thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.